Welcome to Hustle System. My name is Mikhail, and I help people master their mindset, build a better business, and help you live your life on your terms. If you have not yet subscribed to the channel, please click the subscribe button down below. And if you have subscribed but have not yet clicked the notification bell, please click that little bell so you can be notified when I upload more awesome videos like this. In this video, I want to talk to you about the dirty little truth about entrepreneurship that nobody talks about. Okay, here's the deal. Right now, we have all the resources that anyone could ever need in order to start a business from scratch. They exist. And that's why it's become really, really cool on social media for people to say, go entrepreneurship, be your own boss. And what I'm seeing is a lot of kids and adults saying, you know what, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna take the plunge. And they've never been a C-level executive. They've never sold a product. They've never created content. They've never really mastered the pieces of it. And I see people going broke and or bankrupt as a result. Like that's just the reality. We've created a trend. We've created a powerful trend, myself included. I'm contributing to this trend, which is why I wanted to make this video, because it's creating a trend where people are taking massive, massive risks without any of the tools that you would typically have if you were able to mitigate the risk, okay? And so that's the dirty little truth about entrepreneurship, is that there's a lot of things under the surface that you probably don't understand, okay? And this, I'm gonna give you guys one example here, and this really relates to this, okay? When you wake up in the morning, you go and you get in your car, and you drive to wherever it is you're gonna drive, how much do you really understand the way that that car works? And some of you might be well-versed, some of you might be a mechanic, some of you might understand the way that the internal combustion engine works or the way that the electric stuff works, and that's great, and that's amazing if that's you. But the thing is, the majority of people don't actually understand what it takes to start the car, to have the car go, like how is rubber made for the tires, like there's all these little elements that go into a car, and we've started taking these things for granted. And cars are kind of like entrepreneurs. There's a lot that goes into starting and running a successful company. And successful, I mean profitable. I mean that delivers value, that makes an impact. I think we've come to define that, you know, if you've built a website and then, you know, have a thing, like you're an entrepreneur now. Or, you know, if you have like a Shopify store, you're an entrepreneur now. And there's some truth to that. This is nothing against dropshippers, but there's a lot more. It's not just, hey, I'm gonna call myself an entrepreneur, and so I'm an entrepreneur. I think the word is thrown around so much, and the dirty truth about it is that to make it work, it's kind of like making a car work. So now let's say, instead of going downstairs and hopping in your car, or going out to your driveway and hopping in your car, now let's say I tell you to build one from scratch. Yeah, it's a much different thought process, a much different reality to say, okay, yeah, I want you to build a car from scratch. Like, how would you go about that? What would you do, right? And hopefully the first thing you would do is you would try and find somebody who's built a car from scratch and learn from them. And that's why entrepreneurship is such a interesting place right now, because we have more people than ever going into the space with all the tools available, but none of the tools in their tool belt. So like, it's like all the tools are there. They're like at Home Depot, but at home they don't have any, they just have like a hammer. And they're trying to find a way to get all these tools. And that's why it's so important to have mentors in entrepreneurship, because if I told you to build a car, hopefully your first reaction would be not, hey, how do I create rubber from scratch? It would be, let me find somebody who's done this before and see if I can get a hold of them to see if they can show me how it's done so that I can do it. And you might not be able to build a great car, but I guarantee you're gonna get to that end outcome much, much faster than you otherwise would, okay? And that's why I'm gonna segue here into an amazing mentoring program that we have for entrepreneurship, for digital marketing. It's 12 weeks. It kicks butt. It is awesome. I poured my heart and soul into this program to deliver massive value. There's no other program in the market like it. Okay, so quick little, shameless self-plug. Click the link down below. We're gonna include a link for it. Fill out the survey. Let's see if you're applicable and if it's gonna help you. Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna keep blazing here though, because what I'm seeing is it's very encouraging and it's very frightening at the same time, because let's really start to break down the amount of skills you need to have in order to be a successful entrepreneur, okay? And this kind of varies, but honestly, there's a lot of consistency, right? So one is you have to have something to sell, right? So now you have to be able to create something or have access to something that you sell. And again, if you're doing drop shipping, you're kind of doing the arbitrage. I get it. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a warehouse, but you do have something that you sell, right? A packaged form of value that then you exchange for somebody else's money, and then hopefully you've structured your system well enough to create a profit, right? And that's the second part, is structuring an offer. Okay, you have to know how to structure an offer that results in profitability. Well, let's talk about calculating that profitability. You need to know enough about accounting and cost of goods sold and the actual cost of delivery on a product to be able to do the math, to be able to understand whether or not that transaction is actually profitable, or if you're just digging yourself into debt in order to, quote, be an entrepreneur. I see a lot of entrepreneurs go into massive credit card debt. They're not cash flow oriented. They don't understand the fact that you have to balance things out, the fact that you should turn a profit, the fact that you need to have not just an operating account, but also a secondary account in a worst case scenario, like all these little things. Let's talk about 1099s versus W-2s. You have to know the difference between those two. You have to understand payroll. You have to understand human psychology, the psychology of your employees, the psychology of your partners, the psychology of your clients, the psychology of your customers, the psychology of any person that you encounter that has any sort of relationship with your brand. Then you have to reach those potential clients or customers or prospects through all these different channels. So you have to understand channels of acquisition. Then you have to understand the type of content that goes on those channels of acquisition, because you better believe Instagram and YouTube and email and meeting somebody face-to-face are for very, very different mediums, and the amount of mediums is getting more and more and more complex. From there, you have to understand conversion mechanisms of saying, okay, well, somebody's seen this particular thing. How do we get them to convert into an actual paying customer? Once they've done that, okay, let's talk about understanding terms of service, privacy policies. You have to understand how checkouts work. You have to understand how copywriting works. You have to understand how value works and the things that people are actually willing or not willing to pay value for. Let's talk about market dynamics, understanding, okay, am I going into a market that has enough disposable income for me to actually have a big business? Well, from there, once people come in, okay, some people have complaints. Now you have to understand customer service. You have to understand sales. You have to understand basic marketing. All that relates to team dynamics and building your team, which means you have to understand leadership. From there, you go and you evolve and evolve and evolve and evolve and evolve and evolve. And it's this giant list of skills that nobody ever talks about, because even as I'm saying it, you get overwhelmed. And I'm just naming them. Okay, really, like, think about that. I just named the things. I didn't even break them down for you. I didn't even explain them. And it's overwhelming. So it's no wonder the average entrepreneur's life is filled with stress and anxiety and overwhelm and inability to manage. Because guess what? Project management, task management, self-optimization, team optimization, like there's so many things. That's why on this channel, I try and give you guys tools and techniques to optimize, to shave off some time so that you can have more time for yourself, so you can be happier, right? Understanding your own emotional intelligence on maybe you don't operate well under pressure or under stress. Maybe you're not meant to have that level of and like, why does it have to be so stressful? And it's stressful for most people because they go in and they're like going to battle naked. They're going to battle with a toothpick. They're like, I'm an entrepreneur. It's the toothpick of entrepreneurship. I can do it, right? And like, they have no other things to fall back on. And they're scrambling to pick up whichever thing, right? Like putting out fires, like, who here ever feels like their entire life is putting out fires in their business, right? It's crazy to think about. And so I just want you to understand, like, that's a dirty little truth, is that entrepreneurship is the hot new thing. And if you want to build that car from scratch, my recommendation is find a mentor, even if it's not me, okay? Even if you don't find me, find somebody in your industry. You might not be in a digital product space, in which case it's probably not the best fit. If you do sell digital products or plan to add digital products to your existing physical catalog model, highly recommend you check out the link, fill out the form. But you know what? If you're in some other industry, even if you don't go with us, I highly recommend, please get a mentor right now, today. It is the best thing that you can do for yourself, because if I was to tell you to build that car and you're sitting there and you're trying to create a way to, you've got your like a trash can and you have fire and you're trying to create rubber, like that's what most entrepreneurs are trying to do, and no wonder it's stressful, right? No wonder it's stressful, because not only are we saying build a car, we're saying build a car in 2 weeks from scratch. Right? You don't have 3 days to figure out how rubber works. You've got a whole bunch of other stuff you got to put together in your business. And so just that laundry list of skills that I've listed is enough to make you second guess your decision. And that's the point. You need to prove to yourself that you have what it takes. Like, either you gotta do your own accounting or get an accountant. You either gotta do your own legal or get a lawyer, right? And all these things are kind of brushed over in this modern, phase of, oh, well, like motivational quote, I'm an entrepreneur now. No, that's not how it works. Like that's not the part that makes the business work, right? The motivational quote is there to have some sort of positive output, positive impact, positive hook, right? But the business that sits behind that, so often people don't show that, don't show the things that went into it. Understanding how to acquire, get conversions through Facebook ads or through Google ads, like they don't talk about it. How do you create amazing content? How do you do that? How do you build a great editing team? How do you build a great executive team? How do you build a great culture and nurture that great culture within your company? Why is that not the topic of conversation? And it's happening, but it's weird. There's like two different worlds. There's the I'm gonna be a entrepreneur world, and like the kids are jumping into that pool and they're like, yay, they're excited, woo! And then they realize, that list of skills is really big. And then there's the kind of the tech startup, VC-driven actual company world. And some of the smart kids will jump over, but there's still this kind of gap in between. And I really want to bridge that gap with this video and make you understand that if you're an entrepreneur or you're thinking about entrepreneurship, take the time to learn the basic skills. Please understand profitability, understand the importance of accounting, and it's like the least sexy word ever, but it's also one of the most important because cash is the blood of your business. Like, how many businesses do you see that take on 3 mil, 10 mil in investment money and just blow through it, right? Because there's no proven model, there's no field tested thing, right? How do you create, an MVP to test this thing out quickly? Like, how can you get a minimum viable product out quickly and test the market, right? And so now we're talking economics, now we're talking exchange of value, now we're talking generation of value in the marketplace, and then expansion, right? How do you expand without growing too quickly? How do you grow quickly enough to where it's meeting the vision that you have? How do you translate that vision into something that your entire staff can understand? What about your clients? Do they understand it? What about your customers? Do they understand it? What about your friends and family? Do they understand it? Do they support it? Do they think it's the weirdest thing ever? They probably do most of the time because it's weird, right? And how do you deal with the psychological aspects? Because where it gets really fascinating is all of those skills I've listed, like all that stuff I've listed is very doable. All that stuff that I've listed is the easy stuff, okay? That's what you have to understand. Learning the 75 to 100 skills you need to learn and master to be an entrepreneur is the easy part. You know what the hard part is? Coming face to face with your own psychology. Because when you're an entrepreneur, you answer to nobody. You only answer to yourself. And that creates a great deal of cognitive biases and blind spots that you have to deal with. And I'm going to talk about that in a separate video because it's worth unpacking in its own kind of box and its own kind of clean sanitary table on how do you deal with the fact that there was an unknown, and because you didn't know that you didn't know about it, you didn't cover for it. And again, mentors, right? Huge people that have been there before. They can say, hey man, there's a big asteroid coming towards you. And you're like, oh, I was totally not looking there. In fact, I wasn't even aware that direction existed at all. And that's the hard part. Everything else, like building a great funnel, hiring a great team, having great leadership, creating a good culture, those things are challenging at times. They are. But like I mentioned, there's the Home Depot of mentors where it's like you can find those things. If you find the right people and you get the right mentors into your life, you can solve those. But the cognitive bias and blind spot one is much, much, much more difficult because the only way that I've seen to solve the cognitive bias and blind spot problem is to surround yourself with enough people that are able to help you fill in those gaps and are able and confident enough to give you the feedback and raise their hand and say, I think you're missing something, and actually have the ability to give you that feedback and feel confident enough and safe enough with you to give you that feedback. So in addition to the mentoring program, what we've done is we've created a hustle system community. And that's specifically for this. So the mentoring program gives you kind of all the skills. And then this community aspect gives you the ability to cover your blind spots, to override your cognitive biases, And the third and most important is to maintain an emotional frequency of high vibration. Because the other thing that I notice is because it's so stressful to run a company and to build something from nothing, it takes its toll on you. It really does. You have a lot of late nights. You have sometimes not the best diet, not the best workout regimen. And again, we kind of help you with those things because when you feel good in your body, you tend to feel better like emotionally. But also sometimes you just need a little bit of help. You need somebody to talk to. So we're going to also include a link to the free community, and then there's a VIP community where we kind of combine the skill building with the blind spot covering. And we help you see things that you otherwise wouldn't see. We help you kind of, the way that my clients say it, hey, Mikhail, you're great. You help me see around the corner and then around the next corner and then around the next corner, because it's like you can see through walls. And I have my own blind spots. I have my own biases. That's why I have a close, tightly knit circle of advisors that help me and say, hey, you need to locate this capital differently. And go, I totally didn't think of that. I didn't think of that at all. And so we're going to include a link to that community as well. So I highly recommend you check out the mentoring program. You check out the community. There's a free community there. If you don't have the cash, please join the free community, okay? Because we've got like-minded people in there. And sometimes all it takes is for you to see somebody else struggling with the same thing you're struggling with. Sometimes all it takes is understanding that, hey, somebody else is going through this too. You are not alone in this. And then you can ask a question and say, hey, I'm having a hard time with XYZ. It might be hiring. It might be creating a great product. It might be finding customers. It might be customer support. It might be figuring out all the operational intricacies of running a business. It might be some tax thing, right? Again, disclaimer, I'm not a tax lawyer or anything like that, but we're aiming to create a beautiful ecosystem where entrepreneurs can go and be heard in a safe environment, and where it's okay to be vulnerable, where it's okay to say, you know what, I don't know what I'm doing, okay? As I'm scaling my company, I'm gonna be honest, once I get past like 75 people, I've never been in that territory. So I myself also, you have to practice what you preach. I myself am looking for mentors that have companies with 1,500 employees so that I can try and figure out, okay, how do I get past that 100 employee mark and get it to 300, 500, 1,000? What does that look like? What are the challenges that come up? Because you have spillovers in culture, you have, internal politicking that starts happening. You have all these different dynamics that didn't exist when the company was much smaller. And those are some of my things. And there's probably other things that I'm not even seeing. So I just want you to know, in this video, again, this dirty, hidden little thing about entrepreneurship is that it's a lot tougher and a lot less sexy than most people make it out to be. You see the young kids in the McLaren, the Ferrari, the Lambo, and that's all great. That's all great, but there's a lot that goes into it where it's like people only see what you show them. Oftentimes, those people won't show the struggle and stuff behind them. Some of them are really, really great, and they will be vulnerable, and hats off to those guys. A lot of those guys are my friends. And I think we need more of that. I think we need more understanding of saying, look, especially as a man, but also as a woman, it's okay to not know. I don't know what I'm gonna do past 75 employees yet. I haven't figured it out because I've never been there. And I'm not so arrogant to say that I do. But you know what I am doing? I'm looking at people that have 300, 500, 1,500 employees. And I'm seeing the way that they run their companies, and I'm saying, okay, you know what? I think 75 to 150, I think I have some ideas. I think I have some guesses of what we can do once we get there. Again, we're always stacking, we're always growing, and I'm hoping that you grow together with us and we grow together with you. Please check out the mentoring program. Please check out the Hustle Zone community. I really put my heart and soul into it. It's my big mission. I'm all in on this, and because for me, honestly, I've had so many late nights, and I had so many situations where I was on the brink of suicide because I didn't know how to deal with all of the pressure. That I feel really lucky to still be here, to be able to create videos like this for you. I feel really blessed and really grateful and really lucky for it. And this is my attempt to help somebody who might be going through something similar and might not even be realizing it because they don't have the time to sit with their own emotions, to sit with their own fears because they're so busy just putting out fires. So if that's you, please join us because we're there for you, okay? So thank you guys for taking time to watch this video. As always, Hustle System, my name is Mikhail, where I help people master their mindset, build a better business, and help you live your life on your terms. Love you, appreciate you, and I hope to see you in the next video.